it looks like it's done raining. So last week was irrigation week at my house, or irritation, as we like to say. And I spent a good part of my spare time in the previous few days trying to figure out why the pump that takes the water from the little cistern that is just below the Talent Irrigation District ditch and forces it out through the impact sprinkler that I move around and long flexible hoses to irrigate my pasture was not coming up to full pressure. And eventually did find a break in a pipe in another part of the pasture down by the horse ring. And I was fortunately able to close a valve there, and well, I'll deal with that part later. But the pump is working, happy to say. And so, having solved that, I moved on to the irrigation system up by the house, which takes water from the well and waters the plantings around our home, which had been programmed and was just kind of automatically doing its thing when we moved into the place a year ago. And in the fall I turned it off, and now it was time to turn it on again. And I figured also time to figure out how the darn thing actually works. Because there's no instruction manual for the timer, and there was an old timer. There were two timers, and the old timer didn't seem to be working anymore. I'm sure some of you can relate. And anyway, so I took all the wires out of the old timer, and fortunately there was some empty stations in the new one, and kind of got out my old irrigation toolkit and spliced some wires and got all those running, except the ones that don't work. But as I say, those problems I can solve later. And I figured out how to program it, and was delighted to come out of my house this morning and see that, in fact, the lawn was wet. So, score one for me. Anyway, then after doing that for a couple hours yesterday, I took a little nap and celebrated by taking my dog for a walk along the TID ditch. And there's a nice road that goes along the levee in either direction. And I chose to go in the southbound direction, which is sort of the wild side, and it goes for about 1.5 miles. And it's a lovely walk through the trees and the meadows. We live kind of in the middle of an oak savanna. And I know now the difference between a California black oak and an Oregon white oak. A year later, I can spot those and tell the difference. There's a lot of those. Little kind of scrubby ones where it's dry, and magnificent, gnarled, spreading old oaks where it's a little wetter. And there's a lot of ponderosa pines, a number of which have died from drought and beetles and I don't know what, but still some magnificent older pines and some younger ones coming up, and some madrones. And that's mostly what there is. Except, as you go along, there are thanks to all the rain and the snow we had this winter, 3 little seasonal creeks that I crossed that come down off the northeast side of Mount Ashland still have some water in them. And it's in the little gullies by those creeks that you find some other trees. Some cedars and junipers and even a few Douglas firs. And I found one old white alder, top half of it dead, probably from drought, but still with some living branches. And I spotted something that I think must be some kind of ash growing there in the shade next to the maples and some sort of wild cherry, I think. Just a greater variety of trees growing in those wet places. And then at the very end of the trail, where you come out by the highway and the water itself, the irrigation canal, kind of disappears into the ground. I still haven't been able to figure out exactly where or how it gets across the highway from the other side of the valley and just kind of springs up in this one place, which is kind of a dry place, kind of a hillside with not a lot of trees, just some chaparral, some manzanitas and buckbrush and that sort of thing. But there, for the first time ever, I noticed that just below where the aqueduct, it's kind of pours its water miraculously forth, there's an apple tree growing on that dry hillside. I guess the seepage from the irrigation canal maybe enables it to grow there. And I thought, that looks like an apple tree. And sure enough, there were some little fruit on it. And it made me think of how people living in a semi-desert like we do, or like the people do in the Holy Land, would think of a tree growing by the water as a symbol, as we find in the first Psalm or in Jeremiah 17, of a person who trusts wholly in God, who bases their whole life on God's righteousness and mercy. Such a person is like a tree planted by water. It's not afraid of drought because its roots go down deep and drink from the subterranean source of life, even when the surface waters have gone dry. And why in the great vision that ends of the Bible, of that day when God will at last bring the new Jerusalem, the holy city that has been preparing all of these eons, down to earth, where people from every tribe and family and people and nation will dwell together in peace, and God will dwell in their midst. And they will no longer need a temple because God's right there all the time. And they will no longer need the light of the sun or the moon because the glory of God is the continual light shining on their path. They would imagine this river of life pouring forth from the throne of God and from the Lamb, and running perpetually right down the middle of the street of the city. Clear, crystal, pure water, never failing. So we'd never need to fear thirst. And that on the banks of the river grow the trees of life. Not just one tree hidden away in the garden like at the beginning, but a whole grove of the tree of life lining the rivers of the holy city, giving forth fruit throughout the year, all 12 months of the year. The tree of life gives forth its fruit for us to eat, so we never need to fear hunger. And the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations, so that if anyone is sick or feeling like an old-timer that doesn't work anymore, they can take the leaves of the tree as medicine for whatever ails them. They need not fear sickness or death. The tree planted by the water of life, ever green, ever giving. The tree that banishes fear. Now, before Jesus says goodbye to his disciples on the night he says goodbye to them, he gives them many gifts. The supreme gift is the same one that he will give them when he appears to them again on the night of his resurrection. His peace. My peace I leave with you. My own peace I give to you. So that you can be the kind of person who lives without fear. The kind of people who move through the world breathing in and breathing out peace. Forgiveness to enemies. The knowledge of God who loves you and holds you fast and will never let you go. This I give to you, says Jesus, on my way out of the world. Because in me, your relationship with the world will be transformed. You will no longer be someone who goes through the world in anxiety, grasping for the things you know you need and fear to lose, and lusting for the things you wish to have. But because your desire is broken and distorted by sin. But in me you will know peace. The peace of living in the world as I have lived. Free. And because you love me, you will let me go. You will let me have my freedom to go back to God. You will not cling to me. But you will trust that from now on I am going away and I am coming to you. Christ is always going away from us, going ahead of us, going into the future of humanity and paving its way. Paving the way to that city of peace that God will bring to us at last. So all we need to do is follow. And Christ is always coming toward us, always coming to us in the face of the other, especially the other who suffers and is in need. Coming and saying, I too am like you, and you have the gifts that are needed. I am going from you, I am coming to you. Christ is God coming to live with us and going from us always out of the grasp of our limited horizon, out of the grasp of our fear, out of the grasp of our certainties, out of the grasp of our distorted desire, into the freedom, into the unknowability, into the infinite mystery, into the ever-flowing source of life that is God.